appreciate you for having me.
Oh yes, no doubt about it. And getting into this, talk to us about like your entrepreneur mindset. I mean, you have a couple things going from your Instagram page that I've seen,
Mhm.
um, the links and different things. So kind of get us to that journey of the entrepreneurship and how entrepreneur, podcast, all that kind of flows together.
Sure. Okay. So it's wide range for me. I was actually raised in a family business. So a lot of my roots are there as well. My mom ran a landscaping company for 25 plus years, single parent of four children. So I grew up watching her uh, run a business, very small business, self-employed, but it was very successful. Um, and so that kind of started my journey when I got older. I turned 19, or I graduated high school and turned 19. I started doing hair and just venturing out on my own. I looked at college as it wasn't something that I didn't necessarily like, but I just kind of knew I didn't want to do college because I was already raised running a business and I didn't like to be told what to do, right?
Right.
um, and I just never seen myself needing to get a degree based on how I envision myself, moving forward. So I did do it though. I did 2 semesters because I'm, never say never, or I always can try something and see what it's like. And after that, I was like, "Yep, not for me." But you know what? I should have went with my gut because one of the biggest things was like I didn't want to get into debt, and it still put me in debt going 2 semesters just to be like, yeah, this wasn't for me. But anyway, it was still a good experience. And so anyway, I started doing hair on a more serious note, working in a hair salon. I still work in that hair salon today. Been there on and off since 2010 and got into direct sales and network marketing. And from there is this where my whole entrepreneur mindset kind of skyrocketed in a sense. What was already set on a foundation from my mom. I kind of took that and ran with it, started reading a lot more. Didn't like to read at all. My mom used to be like, you need to read a book. That's what she would say. That's what they hide stuff from us there, right? And but a guy, I went to a meeting and a guy, he's basically asked me if I like to read. And I was like, not really, but I will. And so he walked off, came back and handed me this book and was like, just read the first paragraph. And I was like, sure, I can do that. Um, and so after I read the first paragraph, I was like, yo, I feel like I've been missing out on life. Like I'm only 19, right? But I'm like, oh snap, this is good. So I kind of got addicted to personal development from that point and learned a lot through my journey of being in direct sales with the company I was with. And for me, it was more exciting and better because it was hands on.
Oh yeah.
I won't say better, because it was challenges. It was a lot of self teaching at that point, right? But to be in the field and around other people who already were having success and seeing other people's journeys was awesome for me. So that's kind of how I started, and I've tapped into a lot of different things. I've tried a lot of things. I've done modeling. I've done music. My children's father and I had an entertainment company because he's very creative and entrepreneur mindset. Yeah, I have the creative entrepreneur mindset. Let's see, I could go through quite a bit of a list. I've written a book in the process in my journey as well. But I had a friend, just to kind of skip forward a little bit because we might tap into some other stuff. But I had a friend for years, and I really appreciate and value him as a person. Very respectful guy. I met him one day. We met up, and he's like, "Well, what's holding you back from like moving forward or moving to the next level?" And I don't even remember what I told him. I'm pretty sure it was essentially like, really nothing's holding me back. And our friendship is really interesting though, because we don't necessarily talk a lot. We don't see each other a lot, but he will always check in with me like, well, what's the next project? When's your next podcast dropping? Or, what are you doing next? And what's new? Stay on top of it. But for years he would tell me, you need to do a podcast. You need to do a podcast. You need to do a podcast. And I just didn't do it until about 2018. And still learning a lot, but I'm excited. I love podcasting. I love to share, I love to talk, love to connect with people. dive into people's, experiences as well. So it's kind of what brought me here to Level Up Podcast.
Sweet. So it
And
seems like,
featured on Frazierchronicles.
oh yes. So my thing about it is now is, when you think about all these hats and all these different avenues, right? Because everything's about next projects, as you said. What are
Mm.
some next projects, especially with the podcast, especially with business? What are some of your next projects you have on the table?
So right now, I just launched a new season of my podcast,
Okay.
and really just looking to be more intentional, monetize my podcast, and continue to focus on what I've been doing, honestly. So between sharing my own thoughts of things that have worked for me on personal growth and how to, level up, but also interviewing people who are, I would say, movers and shakers, people who have motion, people who are tapping into their creativity and really making an impact or change or difference within the community and or in business entrepreneurship. Because for me, it's more about not to be selfish, but I learn a lot from it. And I feel like in the process, we all grow, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
So that's one of the biggest things with my podcast is just really to keep going, not give up. A lot of people don't make it past the first couple months in podcasting,
Oh yeah.
but expand for sure, to bigger platforms, to bigger guests, and but most of all, just continue to impact in whatever way I can. I'm also deeply invested into the cannabis industry, so I have a online virtual dispensary, and right now our focus is really to educate people on the legalities of it and the health benefits of what it truly can be. I fortunately enough, I spent time in Oregon a couple years ago, stayed there for like 2.5 years. I actually went to school there too. I went to aesthetic school, so not traditional college, but in the industry of cosmetology, right? But anyway, being on the West Coast, I was introduced to the cannabis plant on a different level where people, older people, all kinds of people really, but people would take the plant and juice it or, make it into pain balm and whatever, like use different cannabinoids from the plant, not just to get high, but for maybe anxiety or let's say arthritis, or there's a lot of battles back and forth between states for kids who have autism or kids that may have what's the word I'm looking for, seizures and stuff like that. So anyway, my biggest project now coming up with that is to continue to push my product, continue to educate people on, really, hey, you probably been utilizing these products just for this one reason to feel good, but let's look into what you really need for your body, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, so in a nutshell,
Oh
that's what
yeah.
I'm working on. And other strategic partnerships. I really love helping people and just connecting people where the dots align. So on the side, I'm working on an entire day event where we're doing a podcast, a fashion show. We're having vendors, we have a comedian that's a host, and we're doing a concert. So just to give you an example on that type of time, I love just helping people, facilitating and, bringing the community together, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. And that event's taking place in Alabama or
No, in Alabama at a place called Low Mill. It's like an art district that they've
okay.
here.
Oh.
So
So
yeah,
you are moving some things. I get it now that you want to be with people who make things move and who can make things shake. I mean, that's got some, like you said, motion in it. So when we talk about moving with motion, what are some of the things that you look for when you are bringing on guests or you're networking or you're collabing with somebody? What are some of the things you're looking for in that spectrum, especially when it comes to your podcast?
that's a good question. Ultimately, people just that believe in themselves, that are not giving up. Because for me, my journey has not been perfect at all. I tell people a lot of the reasons why I've been able to survive is like resources and relationships, and just having the not never quit attitude. Even when I was younger in high school, I just always tell myself I would, whatever I do, I just wouldn't quit or give up on whatever it was I was doing. So I played basketball and I did that up until college, which I wouldn't necessarily look at it as I quit, but I knew the dynamics were different in college, and I'm like, I'm not going to the NBA, so I'm gonna just switch gears here. But ultimately, that's what I look for is someone that definitely can align with me, that has the same energy, that wants to continue to make a bigger impact. I understand it's not just about them, but it's bigger than all of us, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and then obviously like something I can learn from them just by them sharing their story and hearing what their trials and errors may have been too as well, just to move myself in a way to continue to share my story. Because a lot of times I still get into my shell and my box where I'm like, I'm doing this, but I'm gonna pull it back because I like my space over here. I
Right.
actually used to be really shy. Like my mom was totally opposite. She was very, very involved in the community. She was into politics, and I used to be that little girl that's be like, I don't know you. I'm quiet. I'm not saying nothing. But over time, I've developed the skill to like people
Oh, well,
and communicate.
that's a
And,
great thing.
you
That's
know,
a great thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah. That's what I look for in a nutshell. People that's just with good energy, good vibes, and that are striving for more.
Now, I'm moving to this question too, because when it comes to that podcast, because as a podcaster, I've seen a lot of things. I have went from equipment. I have just a lot of different things. Spent a lot of money, a lot of time, energy. So when it comes to like podcasting or just like the whole brand of it, um, what do you think are some hiccups for people? And the reason I'm asking hiccups because everybody always says, "Oh, I have to have the $1 million equipment," right? Or everybody goes and look at YouTube, and you look at all these big time people who are like, just big in the podcast industry, millions of dollars, and they jumped into it from whatever career they came from. What are
Mm-hmm.
some of the things you would say are some of the hiccups when people look at that type of thing and then they look at themselves?
Well, I'll share some of my hiccups based on how my life is set up. I'm also a parent. I have two children, and so in order to like stop procrastinating and putting it off, I just had to do it. And that
Right,
was another thing my friend would just tell me, whatever, just do it. You have a phone, right? Like, so I still to this day, essentially, I use my phone and a tripod. Because it's more about putting effort and doing the work than having everything you think you need. Um, so whatever I think we all essentially have a phone, right? So we
right,
can
right,
start where we are, right? And though wearing all the hats for me was a hiccup. I got into it and I was like, yeah, I like this, and I'm recording and I'm setting up. I was doing episodes at my salon, and eventually it got to a point where it was like so good that it was overwhelming because I was doing all of my scheduling, I was doing all of my follow-ups, I was setting it up, making sure the location was, done, prepared. And then it's getting into editing. And again, my friend would be like, don't worry about editing, just post it. I'm like, but no, I just, I have to edit some of it. Like, I want to put my intro in there, or I got to cut out the beginning part where we were like, whatever. So, but
right.
anyways, so wearing all the hats, which has been a really huge thing for me, not just in my podcast, but in general in business, I try to tell people, or I practice telling people, like, if you can do practice on what's best, what you do best. And if you can delegate because you don't want to be overwhelmed and you want to be able to make the best of what you're good at, right? And I say that too because I watched my mom as a woman who landscaped for so long. She wore all the hats. And so our business kind of stayed at a certain level, if that makes sense, because she would only hire a few people that we knew, or me and my brother were the best employee. And so I think that it kind of held us back in a way because she didn't allow for herself to build a team. And if you've been studying, or when it comes to business, in order to grow and like really, be massive, you need a team, a solid team of people. Excuse me. And so anyway, those were the basic hiccups for me. Outside of that, I'm monetizing, learning that part and really getting that part set up and being strategic about it And it's important, not necessarily the most important thing, because some people don't necessarily do podcasting for that. They might just want to share and make an impact.
Right.
But for me, those were the hiccups, because also it ran into me trying to juggle my regular life with podcasting.
Oh yeah. And I
Yeah.
and I can and I could attest and I could agree to that because I mean, when you get into this, when you first start off, and I think with business as a whole, you always start off with that thought, like, this is what I'm going to do. Your vision is like, this is how it's going to be. And then when you start doing it, you're like, okay, this is not what I thought about. This is not what I thought it would be. This
Mm-hmm.
is not, maybe finances is just not what you thought it would be either, especially starting off because you're like, hey, I got this idea. I got this business model. I'm going to make money, but I'm not where I want to be. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? So I think that kind of plays a bigger role too in just like the whole business model as well. Um, some of the things like when it comes to your podcast and your other businesses as well, what would you say your demographic or your reach is? Who are you selling to, or who might be your buyers? Who might be your audience? Like, can you share some of that?
So I feel like part of that I'm still developing. However, ultimately, I look at my avatar as somebody who's like me. So, a a young Black woman with children, maybe, who is in the entrepreneur world, and maybe the demographics are from 25 to 45, and people that are just really into personal growth and like continuing to figure out life through this journey, because it's all different, it's all a challenge. But overall, like who I am now, but not just who I am now, but who I was when I was younger. Like I didn't have a lot of Black women to look up to other than my mom. Like, and even with that, I didn't realize until later how much of an impact and how powerful she was as a woman. So then when I got into business and sales and stuff, starting to see here and there a few people that I can relate to more or less. I didn't have that. So I just really want to become or continue to be who I needed when I was younger, right? And also when I was younger, I was, trying to figure out life, trying to decide what I wanted to do. I often still working on not getting caught up by the shiny object syndrome, where it's like, oh, I like this and I could do that, or this is a good idea, I could do that over here too. um, so, and then I traveled a lot. I made decent money at plenty of points in my life. So, younger women who don't necessarily know who to look up to, or looking for somebody they can relate to, that is just like me, somebody who's in the cannabis, somebody who's a parent from the South, who is a risk taker, right? Just to name a few. Learning, women that are looking to learn finances, because going back to me saying I've made good money, but I didn't necessarily have a lot of financial intelligence. So, the younger version of me, like looking at women who want to do more, want to be more, and just kind of going from there.
Okay. Where are you at, like on social media, where, like, let's say someone is in tune listening to this and they want to know, that's some great knowledge she has. Let me try to connect with her. Where can they connect with you? Where can they find you? Social media, YouTube, wherever. Like, the floor is yours. Where can they find
Awesome. So you can find me at The Real Jeanna Petty. So The Real, and then JeannaPetty, on most platforms, YouTube, Instagram, Threads has been my best friend lately. My TikTok it's missing a T. I'm not as active on there, but you can find me on most platforms at The Real Jeanna Petty. Even if you type that into YouTube, my podcast will pop up as well. And yeah.
and they're able to like send questions, friend requests, because some people they send friend requests to people and they never accept them, and then they send messages and they never reply. So
Yeah, no, I actually do
okay,
respond a lot more than I should, probably. I thought the other day I thought about it, I was like, what am I gonna do when this really starts flooding and like people, reach out to me? But I'm a real personal. Is that the way you say it? Personable person. um, I do like people, right? No, so I do reach out and network and connect with people and respond and follow back and stuff like that. So yeah.
Okay.
But you just never know who you know. You never know who they know. You never know who they are, what value you can add to them, as and vice versa, what they can add to you. And I think that we are getting into a place more and more where collaboration is key, and connecting with each other, and because it could be, it's all about how you believe, but at the end of the day, it's a cutthroat world out here if you're
Right.
not point. So what better way to do it together and figuring out how we can make 2 + 2 equal more than 4.
Oh yeah. And here in these last few seconds, is there something that you would want to tell a young Black female who might be listening, who might be like, hey, I have some dreams, I have some aspirations, but I don't know where I should go, maybe? Or where do I start when I don't have anybody, like you said, around me who I could definitely like look up to?
Very good question. The biggest thing I'll say is to find a mentor. Find somebody, even if you're not directly connected or can't call them directly, find somebody that you can relate to, that has what you want, and follow what they're doing as best possible. If you can, invest in yourself, no matter what that is, whether it be time to study how they're moving or the finances so that you can have more access to that person. But more for the most part, finding mentorship and somebody that can really guide you in the place that you want to go. Because nothing's new under the sun, right? So there's somebody always out there that you can kind of have a guide and mock or follow after to, move to that next step. Yeah. So I would say coaching, mentorship, and going from there. Yeah. Having discipline. Don't give up. Just start wherever you are. Don't necessarily feel like you don't have what you need, because you do. And there's people out there that are looking for what you may have, whether it be a physical product or just a mindset or the story that you have, that you carry, that you've experienced, that you can share with somebody else who may be afraid or, may be dealing with some things, and realize they just might need to realize that, oh, I'm not alone in these experiences.
I could have